sort of catchphrase, I heard it a few times on the campaign trail, is guns, God and freedom. Could you explain that a little bit to our audience back home?
Well, it's God, guns, and freedom.
That's the one.
God always first. But, guns, I think that I love guns. I think the Second Amendment is what's kept America for so long.
Hi, so today we're here at the Turning Point USA headquarters with Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb. So Mark rose to popularity after he starred in 60 Days In, which is a great show where citizens go undercover in jail to help highlight.
Trending on Netflix right now.
Trending on Netflix. Who knows? Conservative trending on Netflix.
Right?
It's great.
It's crazy.
But awesome. Yeah, so the first thing we wanted to ask you is, obviously we've seen in the UK the protests from BLM. Do you think the protests and the riots were justified at all?
No, I don't think any protests or riots are justified. I think that they're frustrated with what's going on in this country with the politics, but they're misguided. The same politicians that they're frustrated with have convinced them that somebody else is the problem, when in reality we're all, as Americans, frustrated with Washington D.C. and what we're getting in return for our tax dollars. So I understand their frustration. They are misguided. Now, as far as Black Lives Matter, unfortunately, they've been hijacked by socialists and communists, people who want to undo America and freedom and what it stands for. And if you really get in and look at where the money goes, it doesn't go towards bettering Black lives in America. It goes towards politicians, foundations such as the Tides Foundation, Planned Parenthood, a lot of other foundations that I don't subscribe to, that I think are very anti-American. So I believe that Black Lives Matter, as do all lives, and that's what's important. But I think that they're misguided in how they're going about it.
Oh, 100%. I think we saw the BLM movement globally raise over $1 billion, but how much of that money has just been squandered on leftist projects?
Take a look at places like Chicago. For anybody that's familiar with Chicago, there's an extremely a high amount of violent crime, including murders, and it's usually blacks murdering blacks. And so where is BLM to address those injustices and those issues? If that's really what your organization is about, it's not just about when a black male dies at the hands of a police officer. If that's all you're about, then change the name. But if you're about the lives, Black lives and bettering Black lives, then you should be able to go out in those communities where you're seeing homicides going on that don't involve police officers. So I think that they've missed the mark, and I don't think that riots or looting is ever justified. It's an adulteration of the First Amendment.
Oh, 100%. I think that leads us on nicely to the next question we have is, do you think the police are institutionally racist? So we're sort of fed this on the British media that the American police are all racist, they hate black people, they hate ethnic minorities. Is that the case?
No, it's absolutely false. It's a false narrative, and they can't back it up. They back it up with emotion. If you don't like it and you catch them asking them for facts or any reports that illustrate bias in law enforcement, then they immediately get emotional with you and call you a racist and that you just don't understand. The fact of the matter is there is not any facts that support that. Are there racist police officers? Sure. You have bad people in every industry. Can we do a better job at some things? I'm sure we can. There's a lot of agencies that do it very well, and it's unfair. It'd be no different than me impugning a person of one race for the actions of one person or a few people, saying that entire race is bad. That's basically what they've done to law enforcement. It's unjustified, it's not right, and there's no data to back that up. And I think the majority of the men and women that I know that put on the badge are good men and women that want to protect their communities. And the majority of the agencies want to do the best job they can to protect their communities.
Following up from there, what do you think the future is in this country? So at the moment, it's every time someone dies at the hand of the police, there's riots, there's looting. How do you think we can move away from that so people actually step back and have a look at the situation before acting impulsively?
I can't control what other people do. I know in our agency, what we do is we constantly try to do positive things. We're always looking at ways that we can outreach to the community, be part of the community. I think that more and more agencies are really going to have to take a look at what are they doing for social media, for branding? What are they doing to positively portray themselves in their communities? And I think that you're going to see a lot more agencies shift that way, where they're going to do better in those areas, so that we can build those. Like I always explain, it's like a bank account. You got to constantly put positive deposits into your bank account. That's why you have to have positive stories, because when the withdrawals come, the bad stories, you can cover those. You've earned the trust of your community. We need to work harder at earning the trust of our communities, but there are a lot of agencies that do it well, and I hope that the ones that are struggling, that can do better, that they'll reach out for help, or they can really recognize where they can help themselves.
Okay, awesome. Moving on. So in the UK at the moment, in certain regions, we're starting to see the police become a political entity for the elected politicians in that region. Do you think that's ever acceptable for the police to become a political body?
Well, we're all voters. We have political opinions. We pay taxes. Our families are affected by politics as well. I don't think that a particular police agency should get involved in politics, but police unions, groups of police officers that have formed to protect themselves, I don't see why they shouldn't be able to weigh in on who's best for law enforcement.
So let me sort of clarify that. By the times, I mean, so the police are being used to enforce politicians' agendas. Do you think that's acceptable?
No, I don't think that's acceptable at all. Sorry, I misunderstood your question. Yeah, I don't think that's acceptable at all. No, politics shouldn't play a part in how I do my job. The law is black and white. I should be able to go out and enforce the law and protect my communities and do it the way that the people have asked us to do it. Now, that's the beauty of being a sheriff. For those in the UK that don't know, the sheriff is an elected position. I actually get voted in just like any other elected official, which means that I don't have a boss. I'm not beholden to the governor, the president. I'm beholden to the people of my county, which makes my job more constitutional, powerful, that I can stand up for the people. Unfortunately, police chiefs don't have that luxury. They work at the luxury of the city councils or the town councils, and sometimes they can be affected by the politics that exist in those city councils. But no, law enforcement should not be doing the bidding or the work of any politician. We should be going out and protecting the people, which is what we swore an oath to do. And in this particular case, we should be protecting the Constitution and defending it, which is the oath that we actually took.
So I guess the next thing I'll ask you is sort of moving on to a UK topic. So in the UK at the moment, particularly in London, we're seeing the police being used to break up anti-lockdown protests. And again, we found it quite ironic because they used sort of batons and arrests to break up a protest because they didn't have a right risk assessment. So they're saying to keep people safe, they're going to beat you up essentially and lock you up because you haven't done the right safety procedure. Do you think that's acceptable, or what would your opinion be on that?
These are tough times. Look, I believe that we have the First Amendment, and I'm sure the UK has something similar where you should be able to go out and redress your grievances. We have our opportunity through the First Amendment to redress our grievances with government. I believe that should be done during government hours, during times, and I don't think it should entail busting up businesses and those types of things. I think there's a way to peacefully protest. Now, I'm with those folks over there in England. I don't believe in the shutdowns either. I think that those are dangerous to our communities. People are only looking at the COVID issue. They're not looking at the depression, the anxiety, the people that lose their jobs. I think I heard an estimate that over 200 million people might go hungry in the world if we do another global lockdown. So I hate seeing where law enforcement is used for things like that. But I'm not sure what the UK's laws are, so I don't want to completely interject on that.
Another sort of UK topic which I'll ask you. So currently, the last stats I saw in London is London has a higher murder rate than New York City. So since Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London's been in power, over 100 teenagers have been stabbed to death in London. What would you do as a police officer to reduce gang crime in a city?
So I actually was a gang and drug detective for a long time. And what you have to do is you've got to target your primary people that are your aggressors, the people that are running those gangs. You've got to be aggressive. You've got to have units that dedicate themselves to looking at old cases that maybe didn't get prosecuted correctly and opening those up and looking if you can put that case back on the docket. You've got to actually go out and be right on top of them. If they make a mistake, you've got to be there to stop them. You've got to put people in prison. That's the only way to break these gangs up. And we were very successful where we did it. We were having a series of drive-by shootings where people driving by and shooting at other people's houses. In 2009, we had 76 drive-by shootings. In 2010, once we started our focus, our concerted effort against these gangs, we went down to 10. In 2011, we had 0. Perfect. And in 2012, we had 0. So it's a matter of really focusing, dialing in your efforts. You need units that are dedicated to these gangs, and they need to be on them, like we say, like stink on doo-doo around here. You got to be on them. But it's a tough thing. I had one of your parliamentary guys come out here, and we were having a healthy discussion about the Second Amendment. And for those in the UK, the Second Amendment is our constitutional right to bear arms. And a lot of people question that, especially from foreign countries. They don't understand it. And I told them, I said, well, we don't have the stabbings you do. Why? Because we have guns to protect ourselves. Yes, are guns used in crime as well? Yes. But are also used to protect. I bet you there's more instances of people protecting themselves with a gun in this country than there actually are gun crimes.
If I'm correct as well, it's different circumstances in the UK, but in the US, I believe most firearm offences are committed with illegal firearms rather than legal ones.
Sure. Like some of the places you have the worst problems with have the highest gun laws. Chicago, you can barely carry, own a gun out in those places, yet they have the most gun, crime. Out here in Arizona, we all have guns. We carry guns. We don't even have, you can carry a concealed weapon, an open carry, and we have very low gun crime out here. So it kind of just depends on, the part of the country, and I don't think gun laws are going to work to protect your communities. They actually serve to take the guns out of the innocent from protecting themselves.
Well, certainly in the UK we see as well is, regardless of the fact we don't have firearms, knife crimes going up, acid attacks are going up. People are even stabbing each other with sharpened bicycle spokes at the moment. So if someone wants to kill someone, they'll kill someone regardless.
Unfortunately.
As sort of sheriff of a county in Arizona, do you think there was voter fraud here?
I think there's definitely been some, I look at what our county had, and it was pretty consistent with what we saw before. But there are places across this country where we've seen some very disconcerting things and things that should be addressed. I think where we're open here in Arizona is Phoenix. I think we use the Dominion program. And I'm hearing that there have been instances where they think that there was some fraud there. So we're going to have to just let that play out in court and see what happens. I don't know enough to insinuate there was. I think Arizona, on the whole, has a pretty good voter protection plan in place. I think the one hole might be those Dominion voting machines. I'm not a fan of the mail-in ballots. I think that just makes it rot for fraud. And I think we're now dealing with that on a national level. So I would hope that we could do better in 2 years for the next national election of putting a better program in place, especially for the next presidential election.
Well, certainly, even in the UK, we've had, I believe it's over 20 years of postal voting, and we've heard of instances where people are receiving their ballots, they're having someone from the union come and knock their door, or someone from a specific religious community come and knock their door and say, we'll take that from you, thank you very much. And so you're having people no longer having autonomy over their vote and it being completely exploited, which you wouldn't have if people were going down the ballot box.
That's right. And anytime you've got dead people voting. You have more votes coming in than actual registered voters in certain counties across this country. I think that it just opens you up for too much fraud. We're in, though as crappy as 2020 is, we're in the 2020. We should be able to put a better program to place. And, people cannot get offended. If you have to show an ID to sign your kid up for Little League football, then you should have to be able to show your ID to vote. I don't think that's asking too much. And I don't think it's asking too much to have somebody show up in person every 2 years to vote. That's not asking too much. I think those mail-in ballots should be reserved for people that are physically incapable or they're out of the country serving their country, whatever it be. I think the rest, show a little initiative and show up and vote in person.
100%. I guess the next thing I'll ask you is, in Europe at the moment we've seen a spike in terrorism. So the UK has recently gone to one of the top warning levels for terrorism. What do you think we can do globally to reduce terrorism?
It's going to be tough right now. I mean, everybody's fractured. We're all dealing with COVID. We're all dealing with our own interior terrorism. Make no mistake about it. What you're seeing in this country is domestic terrorism. These are people that are Americans who put masks on and hoods on, and they're hiding their identities, and they're coming out and destroying businesses. That's terrorism. That defines it. If your actions are to instill fear in somebody else or in another group of people, that by definition is terrorism. So I think we're all dealing with our own issues within our countries that we've got to get under control. And then on a global level, I think that America's probably overstepped our bounds. Like, I think we've gotten involved in frays that we didn't need to be involved in, and we need to do a better job of not doing that. That's way above my pay grade. But I think that we should be work together, much like I was telling you about the gangs. It's you just do it on a global level. You have people that will go target those specific things without trying to destroy an entire country just to root out one or two people. Let's just target those groups and let's go after it. We have the technology to do it. You can see that clearly, like when we put our minds to going out and taking out a target, we've had no problem doing it.
Do you think Antifa is a terrorist organization?
I do, yes. I think that their whole job, their goal has been to uproot America and freedom. And I think they're using fear and tactics of destruction to do it, which I like by definition. I think that classifies them as terrorists because they are instilling fear in people. When you put posts, messages out on Twitter that you're going to come out into the suburbs and rape the women and all those things, that is to instill fear in people. That's terrorism. That's what terrorists do. They instill fear so that they can achieve what they want.
Oh, it's the same in the UK. Again, within my room at Turning Point UK, I've been attacked. I've had friends who have been attacked, targeted at university, friends who had their rooms vandalised at university, or what they do, the university lefties, they call in men, essentially men who've been in and out of prison for political crimes, to go and intimidate people across the country, and that's an organised movement. So what would you say to people who'd say Antifa is an idea, not an organisation?
Well, Joe Biden said that, and I think that's an idiotic statement. They would say that they themselves believe that they're a group, an organization. We have enough intel to know that they're very organized with how they do it. It's not an idea. They don't just show up magically at the same time in a park or down a street in one of your major cities. They don't just all like, oh, I felt like I should show up here tonight. They do it because they've been organized and they have a plan in place, and they all got together to show up at one time to instill fear or do whatever to further their agenda, which is anti-American. They want to undo America. They want socialism, communism, whatever it is, and the majority of Americans don't.
No, 100%. I guess the last question I'll ask you, your sort of catchphrase, I heard it a few times on the campaign trail, is guns, God and freedom. Could you explain that a little bit to our audience back home?
Well, it's God, guns, and freedom.
That's the one.
God always first. But, guns, I think that I love guns. I think the Second Amendment is what's kept America for so long, or else these corrupt politicians would have overrun us a long time ago. I think if you look throughout history, the countries that have fallen to dictators, it all started with taking them out of church and taking away their guns. And these are the things that our founding fathers knew. And they purposely put it in the Bill of Rights to protect us from these things. The Second Amendment is so important that they put it right after the First Amendment. And so I think it's that important to freedom that's why I always say I love God, guns, and freedom.
Excellent. Sheriff Mark Lamb, thank you very much.
And thank you.